Is Yoimiya meta? I mean, we have Hu Tao, and we have Shang Ling, and I do Luke, whatever. Point is, your primos are so valuable, can you really risk wasting them on such a skippable character? Well, that's the question here. And I want to start with, what does it mean to be meta? Now, I think we all know what it means, right? It's the most efficient tactic available. It's what's best. It's the top choice. All right. Well, what's the E in meta? It's efficient. Let's look at the rewards for Spiral Abyss. They are a couple pulls every 2 weeks. I got news for you. It is never efficient to build or pull characters to clear Spiral Abyss. You would be better off never doing Spiral Abyss and only doing what you see here in this clip, which probably looks familiar, is just playing the game. And look, no burst reliance. I just use my E and just pew 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 pew. I want to use Yoimiya. She's a pleasure to use. And so pulling her and using her for the game is great. And that she can clear the Abyss, what a bonus. Now let's start with the obvious comparison, right? That's Yoimiya and Hu Tao. And let's focus in on the single target damage, which is a pretty large portion of the game. Now there's obviously some bosses like flying enemies and teleporting enemies where Yoimiya has an advantage, right? And that kind of brings me to the point, which is if we just phrase one of the points against Yoimiya in a different way, it starts to make more sense why I'm confused about this. If I said, you had Hu Tao, but she did damage at range. She didn't have to worry about HP management. She didn't have to run Vape. She could run any kind of comp. And she did more damage. You'd be like, well, that doesn't sound balanced. So why is it surprising that a perfectly played Hu Tao can have a higher damage ceiling than Yoimiya? That is balanced by the fact that Yoimiya has all of these other strengths. Now, is it efficient for a mobile phone player to learn how to animation cancel, or to be locked to a single team, or to actually be locked in mostly single target damage, as opposed to building a team around doing AoE damage and just driving off-field damage dealers like you see here? Does this look like single target locked damage? It's fine. It's driving ranged damage dealers. It's what you want from a team player. It's great. And what doesn't show up in the math is just some of the actual gameplay stuff. You see all these enemies are spread out where even Venti would have trouble sucking them up, and yet she can just shoot them. It's great, right? We have the 3 robots here. She can just stand on one side and just shoot the other. This is a strength that Yoimiya has that doesn't show up in math, because when was the last time you looked at a theory crafting spreadsheet that calculated the time it took to run X amount of spaces on the map or whatever, and then, right, average that out with a DPS? It's never happened. And yet this is something that Yoimiya just does. It's just part of her kit. This is time she saves, and the S in DPS is seconds. So if you increase the seconds, you decrease the DPS. Again, this doesn't show up in math, and yet when you play her, you know. And I've seen some pretty cringe videos about how Hu Tao can hit 2 enemies or whatever at once. Look, Hu Tao is fine, but the answer to like mob floors is Venti. It's not hitting 2 enemies with Hu Tao. And look, you can hit Venti's burst with Yoimiya, you can drive, and you might be like, well, why should I use Yoimiya here instead of, I don't know, whoever else? Well, because you built Yoimiya, because she's already built, because you like her and you use her, and she works already, right? And look, you see this big hulking boss, even in AoE floors, right? A Sucrose or whatever isn't going to have high single target damage. And look, it's not like single target damage is useless in a floor like this. So yes, it is worthwhile to play Yoimiya in an AoE scenario like that. And confusingly, when people talk about, again, meta and efficiency, and there's a min-max choice, Hu Tao can do better damage than Yoimiya. But Yoimiya can play the same team. This exact same team Yoimiya can do well in. And because of her IZD, she actually can work with C0 Yellen. Now let's say you don't have Albedo. Well, guess what? Boom. Hyper carry. Right? We got Yunja in there. But guess what? Because she doesn't need to vape, like Hu Tao needs to vape, you could just run pure Pyro team like that. You don't have Zhongli? That's fine. You can throw in a Xingqiu or Yellen there. Or, again, because you don't need to vape, you could do an Overload team. This also works. Any character that you like, you can throw in. You have AoE? Boom. Do an Overload team like this. It works because Yoimiya is flexible. Right? You don't want to build Xingqiu or you want to use them for Hu Tao? You can just run Mono Pyro Yoimiya right here. This team is great. It's a strong team, and you get to use Xiangling. You don't even have to pick. Everyone has a Xiangling, I hear. Now, the Overvape team is the same team as Sucrose Taser, and so you might say, why don't you just play Sucrose there? Well, you see, that requires building Sucrose to do it, but Yoimiya works there fine. Unlike other Pyro DPS, isn't negatively impacted by overloads. And guess what? You can even throw a healer in because she's not negatively impacted by a healer either. And so is it efficient to say that there's a min-max better option on the like 200 teams that Yoimiya works on? I don't think so. That's my take. And when I say it's my take, it's the only good take. And if you disagree, I don't know, man. Sorry, but you're wrong. Like, sub, thanks, bye.